evening, guys, and welcome to Are You Brave Enough? I'm Amy, your host for the night. Tonight we had Neil Packer and Jane Rowley, and Neil owns the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Inkley and Leicestershire, and it's the original best haunted antiques, and I can say that. Anyway, could you please share and bump up the arts? And if as many people as possible, we would be really appreciative. Trudy's show isn't on tonight, so if we run over, it doesn't matter. Anyway, good evening, Neil. How are you both? You okay?
Evening, I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, evening, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm all good, thanks.
Brilliant.
It's strange being a guest, actually, because we normally presenting our own shows.
I know, it's really strange interviewing you. It's normally you interviewing me.
Yeah.
So, right, interesting night tonight. We are at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the location?
Yeah, I'll start then. It's a two-story building which houses hundreds of potentially haunted objects, or objects that have energy around them. And we hire the centre out to teams to come in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights to experience what they can from the objects and the building. It is unique because the items aren't behind glass, so you can actually hold the stuff and you can actually sit in the haunted wheelchair and that sort of thing. So that's basically what the centre is all about. And of course, it's a research centre, so Jane and I especially do lots of different research, not just on ghosts, but we research all forms of paranormal. So over to you, Jane.
The centre. It's a truly unique place. It's just amazing. There's just nowhere like it in the UK, and it's just a brilliant place to be. And if you want to get some experience or some activity on one of your investigations, it's just a great place to go.
It certainly is. How long has the Haunted Antiques been open for?
Well, we've been open just over 3 years now. We had the first floor for the first 2 years, and then last year we got the whole building, so we've expanded. But even though we've got the whole building now, it's still getting quite full. So it's 3 years.
Brilliant. If anybody have any questions, Neil and Jane, please ask away in the comments, and we'll get the questions up and that lot. Yes, thanks, Will. For a change, I am not on my own internet. I was hoping it would improve my internet. Anyway, why did you guys choose the Haunted Antiques, this location? Why did you guys choose this location?
You can answer that, Jane.
Well, I know Neil had been searching for a place for quite a while, and I know that he did go and visit it. I think it came to the point where he was collecting all the things in his garage, and it came to the point where he just needed to find a bigger premises. And I know he did go and look at this place, and then he sort of gave it a while and he thought about it, and then he was sort of really drawn back to the place. And in the end, he sort of took it on, knowing that really it was the right place, because it was just sort of calling out, and it just needed to be, that was the place. It all comes to you when the right time is there, when it's the right place and the right time, it just happens.
Yeah. Can you remember our first night up here, Jane?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our first night up here, we had none of the items up here. It was just an empty shell. And we spent the evening up here, and it was phenomenal, wasn't it? The activity.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
Yeah, go on.
The amount of activity that we had in there was just amazing, and the amount of spirits that we were picking up. I've still got a lot of them drawn in my book from that very first night that we were there.
Yeah. So that's how
Your
it began.
book. Do you want to show it?
This is
Absolutely.
well, this book. How this book came about was that the very first investigation that we went on, Neil and myself and a few other members of the team at the time, we went on the investigation. It wasn't at the research centre, but it was at the old house in Colville, and I'd seen these spirits that were there, and I wanted the team to try and understand what I was seeing, so it would help them with what we were working with. So I started drawing the figures, and it has actually turned out, you know, I've actually drawn a lot of the figures as we've gone through over the last 2 years of a lot of the spirits and a lot of the things that we've come across. So it's sort of a bit like a record, and it's been great because when people come in to investigate, we don't tell them what's there. You know, we want them to experience things for themselves. We want them to have the, you know, to be able to pick up on things. And when they come to us sort of after the investigation and say, well, you know, we've experienced this or we've saw this. And when I show them my book, you know, is this what you saw? And they go, yeah, that's it. So it's great for them to
really
get that sort of confirmation that what they've seen. And it's good for us because we know people seeing these things.
Right, we have our first question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's gone up from Craig Bradford, right, where I've put it. And Craig's got an haunted item he's going to be sending to the centre, right?
Okay, cool.
And Craig, what's the most active item in the museum?
What's your thoughts first, Jane?
I would say probably the big mirror in the seance room. And the reason why it's so active is because it is a portal. It's a doorway for many things that come in and out of the centre. It has its own sort of sense of being. Really, it's just a great thing to have in the centre, and it is. I don't think there's anywhere else that's got anything like this. It's just such a brilliant item to work with.
Yeah, I
There's
think
an interesting story behind the mirror.
Oh, is that when Jane astral projected into it?
There is it's how it came to the centre, and also Jane astral projecting into it. But could you take us into the room just to show us?
We'll go into the seance room. Yeah.
Okay. Jane, do you want to tell us about when you astral projected into the mirror?
Yeah, okay. It was right from we wanted to do something special for Halloween, and we wanted to do an experiment that was sort of quite unique. And after a discussion with the team at the time, we decided that several of them would stay back and film and record what was going on, and the rest of us, 4 of us, would actually try and astral project into the mirror. And then when we come out of the mirror, without talking to each other, we would actually draw what we saw, what we experienced, and then hope that the pictures married up. When it came to it on the night, this was in the October, so we'd planned this right from January. So when it come to the October, on the night, there was only Neil and myself turned up. So we were going to cancel it, but it seemed
I tell you what, I would have.
Yeah. So
I was there
only
that
Neil and
night.
myself
I would have turned up.
So, yeah, we decided to go ahead with it, that I would go into the mirror and that Neil would then film it. And so from that, I then just put myself into a state of meditation and actually went through the process of basically leaving my body, going into the mirror, having a seeing what was in there. And then after about half an hour, I think I came back, and that was it was quite a unique experience.
So that's the mirror you can see on the screen.
If anybody feels anything, please let us know in the comments and that lot. Hang on. So, how did the mirror come to the centre?
Okay, that was brought into the centre from a medium friend of ours who comes to the centre quite often, Pete Barry. He was invited to do a house cleansing at a house in Loughborough, and he found that the mirror was letting in negative spirits into the people's houses. So that's what was giving him all the trouble. So he took it out of the house, but it wasn't actually inside the house; it was in the garden. It was like a secret garden. It sort of made the garden look bigger. But there's some sort of temple behind the mirror, I think. So that's where it came. So Pete gave us the mirror, and I think the mirror has changed the centre completely. It was always very good on activity, but since the mirror's been here, it's some nights it's off the scale.
It's really ramped up. Absolutely. So, so Andy's just saying that we're there this year, hopefully. Right.
Yes,
Anyway,
yeah, I think you got your bookings.
Next question.
Next question.
D has put, I love going to the centre. Neil and Jane, what are your favourite objects in the building?
Okay, what's yours favourite, Jane?
Well, apart from the mirror, I've got quite a few favourites, because for me it's understanding the story and understanding the things that are behind them. One of my favourite items is the decanter set that was brought again from somebody's home that was having lots of problems. So understanding sort of the problems that we're having and then bringing that out and it going to the centre. You know, that, I mean, we still encounter the spirit that's attached to that. There's things like the wax box that's on the side there where Neil is. There's lots of it's a bit difficult really, because there's so many things we've worked with and so many things that have given us results. You know, they're all my favourites. They've all given me such an experience that that changes the way you think and feel, and it challenges sometimes what you thought you knew. And yeah, it's there's just lots really.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Jane. It's difficult to single anyone out, but I think the war room is very special now, which we were in at the start. Now the shelter has ramped that war room up, and of course you got the wheelchair that was featured on ITV this morning when we first opened, and I can't forget Bob's clown, because Bob's clown was one of the first items I ever had, and he's such a lovely little lad, and Bob is like a part of the family. So, but I like all the items, obviously,
Really
because that's why we got them.
Absolutely. Mark wants to know, what's the oldest haunted article you have in the museum? Who can answer that?
The oldest is two musket shot from the English Civil War, so it's 16 something. So that's possibly the oldest, but we do have a skull, well, half a skeleton, and personally I don't think that's much younger than the musket shot. So the musket shot is definitely known to be the oldest, but we've got half a skeleton with a skull, and that is very old. I don't exactly know how old, but that is very, very old.
Absolutely. So I was just saying if anyone had said anything about if they're picking up anything. Abby's put love there. I could stay there all night. Anyway,
just on about that comment though, Amy, when Abby said she'd stay here all night, to be honest, the centre is a different beast. You know, in the daytime on a Saturday when we're
At
open,
night, yeah.
it can be nice and quite pleasant. However, the sounds room at the minute doesn't feel very nice where we're standing, I must admit. I think Ant is feeling something. But at night, when you're on your own, and there's only been one person to try and stay up here on its own, on their own, walking through the different rooms. I know Matt stayed in the old tea room on his own one night, but he didn't go in the other rooms. And to venture from the room to room on your own is a bit daunting. And I must admit, I am going to do it in April, but I'm a bit nervous about it already. So
Yeah.
a lot of people said, "Oh, they'll still
I'm
do
not
it on their own."
surprised.
A lot of people said, "Oh, they can
I
still
know
do
what
it
Jane's
on their
going to do with that.
Yeah. But Jane can probably say more. The centre is a different beast. Once
Yeah.
everyone
You
else
have to
is
be
gone.
careful what you wish for.
But even that other team member, Matt, when he stayed there, he was probably one of the most skeptical of the team. He's very you know,
Yeah.
he's a scientist, isn't he, as well?
Yeah, that's right.
And he is very sort of scientifically orientated about debunking things and everything else like that. And I thought he would be one of the ones that would just say, "Oh yeah, staying here is no problem." But when he actually stayed there all night by himself in the tea room because he couldn't get home really until the next day, it was all ended up in a bit of a mess, and he couldn't get home. And he ended up staying there on his own in the night, but he didn't leave the tea room. And he said he was, he was scared, he was petrified. He wouldn't leave the tea room because he felt he really did feel quite scared.
That goes to Drew as well. Drew was doing a charity night up here, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And it started off okay when he was in the dolls room, but he said he was just terrified, and he sat in the tea room because he was just too scared to go anywhere else. So
I've slept there loads of times. Both slept there no end of times, and like we've locked up after the teams and all that lot. But
Yeah.
we're not like gone into rooms on our own.
No, it's a difficult.
Do you know what I mean? We've always gone in pairs.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Craig wants to. Hang on, where? Craig wants to do a pro night there. Like,
What's a pro night?
if you quit, you might get a space.
We do
Well,
have. I think we
so-
have 3 Fridays and about 7 Sundays left available to book this year. Obviously, if those nights don't get booked up, we'll do.
Did you hear that, Craig? If you want to do a pro night, you need to message Neil pretty quick.
Yeah, message Julie
Right.
on our email, new bookings email address.
Yeah. Ricky wants to know, hi Jane, where is your favourite haunted location?
Well, I have got to say the Haunted Antiques, but apart from that, one of my favourite places is Dudley Castle and Wigston House in Leicester. We've been there. And Edinburgh, you know, I love Edinburgh. I love the whole city. It's supposed to be the most haunted city in the UK. But I do have quite a few favourites. So that, you know, but Dudley Castle, and that's just really based on the fantastic experiences we've had there. So I'd probably say Dudley Castle, but outside the Haunted Antiques. But it's always the Haunted Antiques, I think.
Absolutely. Right, Neil's just left the seance room, right, and he's now standing in the witch's room. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the witch's room, Neil?
Yeah, the witch's room. It's a little room, and it's got a lot of occult items in here. You know, we've got Aleister Crowley's death mask and Aleister Crowley books, because Aleister Crowley does fascinate me, I must admit. And we've got a haunted box that we did actually open on our live feed. So this is occult, like a lot of occult items. We've also got a lot of African items, like the Nkondi, other items that Jane's picked. A few of these Jane's picked up as well. So it's like the occult African voodoo sort of room. But there's also an experiment being conducted in this room. It's an ongoing. The good thing about the centre and for us working here, we can do experiments and we can just leave them going. So there is an experiment going on in this room that's been going on a couple of years now. And we have had Alistair Crowley spirit communicating in this room. You know, he said his name through a spirit box, and
You've got a bit of a link with Alistair Crowley, haven't you?
yeah, we first came across Alistair Crowley when we were in that True Crime Museum in Hastings. He sort of overshadowed me.
Yeah.
It weren't too bad, but he overshadowed me, and he's had some sort of link with us since then. I don't understand why. I'm starting to form my own theories on that one, and we will do experiments about that as well. But I think Alistair Crowley was misunderstood personally. But so this is the witch's room.
Okie dokie. What's your favourite item, witch's room?
Favourite item in the witch's room?
Yeah.
It's possibly in the Chamber of Fear, which is just off the witch's room, a small room, big enough for one person, and obviously that's when we caught the mirror getting picked up and smashed. As I think Anne's going to show the shattered mirror. So I don't have a favourite item. I just love them all.
That is the mirror that I put together.
Yeah, you spent 8 months fixing.
How long did it take me to? Oh, yeah, I didn't have to take 8 months as well. Yeah, 8 months fixing that. Right, Craig wants to know what sort of spirits reside in the museum, and have you managed to get their names?
Okay, we'll hand that one over to Jane because Jane's the medium. So
Now, there's quite a few spirits in there, and we've been collecting information, say, for the last 3 years. But one of the spirits that sort of comes to mind, really, on the very first night that we were in there, I picked up on a cobbler, and I felt that he had had some sort of little workshop down in the back alley. And from the information that he gave us, I did actually find him I found his actual records, and he was born around 1832, and he died when he was age 53 in 1885. And I've actually found his records, his birth certificate, his death certificate, those sorts of things. So he is the one that really sticks to mind when you say we actually find records and names and things. So his address was 11 Blockley's Yard, which is actually in the little alley behind there. But there's many spirits are attached to the building, but there's also many that are attached to the items in there. And then when people bring in energies as well themselves, and I don't mean like attachments, but I mean when people are there and their sort of family spirits come as well, it can get really, really busy in there, spirit wise. But I do have my little book here, and when we come across spirits, or when I work with items, I do draw the spirits in there, and I get whatever information I can from them, and put it all in this little book. But there's not just one or two in there. There's dozens. And it's not just the spirits either. We've got creatures, we've got sort of masses of energy, there's the black balls of energy, and there's lots of different things in there. So it's not just you're not just talking about a spirit from a human person. You're talking about many other areas in the paranormal that we've experienced up there.
yeah,
You want to tell us a little bit more about spiritual Sorry.
I was just going to add, I remember Jane and I, we do seances. We did do seances quite regular. We did a seance once, and we were actually in the new tea room. And it was so busy, it was just like Piccadilly Circus with spirits. But they just had the fair, I think it was the Goose Fair that they have in the town marketplace, just over the road from us. So whether the spirits came with all their family, and they just thought, oh, we'll go up, pop in and see what's happening there. But can you remember that night, Jane? It was such a busy
Yeah,
night. No,
yeah.
I think Jane was actually struggling to keep up with them because they all wanted to say hello. So
Well, they were all just like coming in off the
Absolutely.
street, weren't they?
yeah,
It was just strange. But it just changes the way that we, our experiences are and how we think about communicating with spirit and how much spirits are around us.
but the centre isn't going to be
Absolutely.
sort of famous for.
Nikki,
Go on.
sorry, I was just about to say,
Yeah.
Nikki says, I'm a great believer that a location finds you, but more items find their way to you. Will you stay or locate to a bigger location? You've achieved so much there.
Well, I do firmly believe that items do find their way in here, for whatever way and for whatever reason. They could find the way from going to one person to another to another to another, then end up here. And we've had this happen quite a few times. The
Yeah.
items do come here because the spirits want them here. Um, I don't know what it is about the place, but it is a special place. I know I'm bound to say that, but everyone who comes here, all the investigators agree, it is a special place. And what we're doing, it is special. And I know once we're back up here properly, we're going to do more research, more experiments to go even further. As for getting too many items, I'm not quite sure because I think if we did have a bigger place, would it be the same? I'm not sure, to be honest. Obviously, we'd all have to sit down. If we did get to that position, we'd all have to sit down and talk about it. And obviously, Jane is such an important part of the centre because she's the medium. Obviously, Jane will have a big
Yeah.
say in that sort of decision anyway. I don't know. I'm torn
Absolutely.
whether we move to a bigger premises, but would it be the same? I'm not sure. What's your thoughts, Jane?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one, and I think you'd have to sort of weigh it up. If you felt that was needed, I think you'd have to weigh it up as and when the time comes, because the building itself is so special in so many ways. It sits right on the edge of Hinckley Marketplace, and we know Hinckley Town has been around since the 1100s, and Hinckley Market has been going since 1350, I think.
Yeah.
So we've got hundreds. So there's always been a building sort of on that site for hundreds of years. So we know that we've got layers and layers and layers of history where people have lived and worked and died on this site. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so interesting, because there is just so much here, and we still feel that we're only scratching the surface of what this place has to offer. And I do feel that it does act as like a beacon in the spirit world, and it does pull in different spirits from all different things depending on what we're doing or what the item is. And some of the experiments that we've got coming up after lockdown, it's really going to I think test some of our own theories and thoughts about what a lot of things are in the paranormal.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Lisa wants to know, is there any items that you don't like working with? I'll ask
Me,
just.
me personally, yeah. There is one particular doll
Yeah.
which we'll take it in because I want to come out of this room anyway because I don't feel very well.
Yeah. It's starting to feel quite heavy in there.
Yeah, I'm feeling quite sick in there. This doll here, Hannah, there's just something about her that
Hannah.
sort of freaks me out a bit. She does look a lovely doll, but from day one when I had her,
She's
she
lovely.
was delivered to my home address, and I took her out of the box, sat her on the settee, and both me and Julie says, no, she's got to come out of the room. We just couldn't have her in the lounge. She's a bit like Marmite. Some people love her, some people hate her. I've known grown men pick her up and walk around all day on a Saturday holding her because they're just drawn to hold her. But I don't particularly like her, I must admit.
She's just It's an
I
attention
don't mean that
seeker.
horribly. It's not that I don't like it. She scares me a bit. So, what about you, Jane?
What about
Anything that
you,
strikes
Jane?
you?
I mean, right from being a child, I've never particularly liked clowns. I always thought they were scary, and yeah, I know there's quite a few up
There's
there.
only a
I just
few.
try not and look at them. But there isn't really anything that I wouldn't work with. And since I've been working at the centre, when we get something new and it's got, somebody comes up with this, that there's a story behind one of the items, I really want to try and work with it and understand what was happening with it, because there's even, people have said before, how come we don't get a haunted toaster and stuff like that? But there is even modern day items, and one of the things that sort of sticks to mind is the little wall light that we had.
Yeah.
And that was brought
That's
in because a
downstairs.
child was crying, and when we actually did some work with that was quite it was an item really of very much interest, because it let us see and understand just something completely different, because modern day items can really have something attached to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So, what's the strangest object you have?
Strangest. I think that's probably the strangest is that baby nightlight. It's just like Jane said, it's just a modern nightlight for a baby. And who would think
Yeah.
you switch it on and a spirit comes forward? We tend not to tell people too much or too much detail about all the spirits are here. All the people. We like to call them people, not spirits. Of all the people, all the residents of the centre, because we don't want to sway people or teams' minds before they even get here. Now, if we say, "Oh, there's an old lady attached to that," there's a animal attached to that, they've all immediately got that idea in their head. We want them to tell us what they're picking up from any of the items, and then we can go back to Jane's book or the experiences that we've had and say, "Yeah, that's right." Work with it and see if you can come up with more info.
Right. Lisa wants to know, does the activity increase at any particular time of year?
What do you think, Jane?
I think it can do, but I think it's a case of wanting it to. We're very much believers, well, in my experience, I know that sending out your thoughts prior to doing an investigation or doing any experiments is really quite important. So if we're planning an experiment, which we have got something planned towards the end of March, that's going to be a super wolf moon. So I'm very much already thinking ahead now, and I'm already sending out the thoughts for that experiment. So I think if you've got something that's like, you're targeting, if you like, a date where the energies are going to be quite high. For me, I will be targeting that date and putting my intentions out there of what I want to do. And I do think that heightens the energy, and that can really help in your investigation.
Yeah, I agree. I believe it's all down to your intent. If you come to Antique Centre with the right intent and with the right energy, you will get more than you ever bargained for. That's no exaggeration. And if you come with the wrong intent and without the respect of the building, the items, and the residents of the centre, you will get nothing. You have to come with the right intent, and that's what we try and instill with everyone that comes here. It's no good being deadly serious, because that's no good for any investigation. You've got to have fun. The main thing is to have fun, and I think that builds the energy straight away anyway. So you've got to have the intent when you come here.
Absolutely. Right. Gary wants to know, have you ever had a definite message or information that you could check back on and confirm is real?
Yeah, we've had quite a lot. Like Jane mentioned earlier about Mr. Rag, the old cobbler here. Jane's researched him, got his birth certificate, his death certificate, know exactly where he was born, and that's just one. And we've researched Bob with his clown, wherever he is. He's here. We've researched
Yeah, he's
about
on the
Bob because we've
shelf
got
there.
his name, so we know everything about him. So yeah, we got quite a few items that
He's good as well.
we know as much as possible about them, which is always good. Obviously, most items will never ever get all the details about anyway, because it's probably just impossible. But the more we do, the more we work with items, the more definite results we get. And it's not just mine, Jane, and
Absolutely.
Amy's and Ant's working with the items. It's what the teams are saying as well. You know, if we got one person saying, "Oh, I'm picking up the name John," we record it, but that's okay. That's their experience. But when you get 5, 10 people all picking up with the name John without knowing what the other people have said, that's kind of more interesting.
Absolutely. Right. Julie wants to know, are the spirits that you encounter genuinely nice, or do you have any malevolent ones?
Let's go. Let's start with Jane first.
I'd say yes to all of the above. we have the full. We have quite a range, really. We have the nice spirits. You know, we you can walk into the sounds room and it'll feel just like your grandma's on a Sunday afternoon. You know, it's very welcoming, very warm, very loving, and you feel really at home there. And another day you could walk in and you feel like you've walked into, into Hell's Gates.
Yeah.
It feels awful. You feel sick. You feel uneasy. You can feel the really dark energies around you, and there's a whole range here, but obviously they're not here all the time 24/7. It's a mix of whenever they're in and out, or whatever's there at the time that you're there.
And also the centre seems to be we've done it this way specifically because the first half of the centre is the good side. This is the way I describe to the people who come in. But you go through the door there on top of the stairs, over to the witch's room and the sounds room, and we call that the dark side because that tends to be where the bad guys stay. Obviously they do intermix, depends on who's here. The reason Ant and I left the sounds room during this live feed because it doesn't feel nice in there, and I think actually the witch's room feels worse than the sounds room tonight. But it's good, you know. No one's investigated the centre since October. So you know, the first team to come in, the first team that come in, it's going to be off the scales to me.
But we do have a bit of a saying, don't we? That when you do your investigation, you do have to be careful what you wish for, because a lot of people wish for activity, and then when they get it, sometimes they don't always want it.
That's right.
Absolutely. Gary wants to know, what makes you both want to be involved in what you do, want to achieve?
For me, to be why do I want to be involved? I just think it's fascinating. And the best thing about the centre and working with the people I'm working with, especially Jane, that they are prepared to not think the same as all the other teams. They are prepared. Because I come up with some silly ideas. Now, Jane has been coming up with some silly ideas. So, and we're prepared.
I've heard some of your silly ideas.
But we're all prepared to try these silly ideas. Other people will perhaps think, no, we can't do that. That's not allowed. You know, most teams will think they've got a blinkered sort of way of investigating. They all do it slightly different, but it's all basically the same. But we, especially with some of the things that we're going to be doing soon, that we're not telling anybody yet. it is way outside the norm. See you, Jane?
It really is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But what drives me really, I mean, I've been involved. I mean, I've been seeing spirit right from being a small child, and for me, it's what really drives me is finding the truth, finding out what's there, what challenging a lot of the ideas and beliefs, what we've been told that we should be thinking, or what we should be seeing, or what we should be doing, and we want to challenge all those. And one of the experiments that we have got coming up in the near future, we know it's going to be controversial. We know some people are going to perhaps kick off about it, but for me, it's finding the truth. And while we keep listening to other people and never delving that little bit deeper, we're never going to find the truth. So that's really what it's going to be all about.
Absolutely.
It's
a research centre.
Yeah.
Can I just add, Amy, I'm not interested at all of proving to everyone else there's life after death. I'm not out to prove it. I'm out. This is my journey, and this is Jane's journey. So we're doing it for ourselves. To me, the centre is my journey. I'm just fortunate that I've got people around me that I do have around me, and people want to come and investigate what we're doing. So I'm proving to myself. I don't want to prove to TV audiences. That doesn't interest me. I'm doing it for selfish reasons.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Some of the things that me and Neil do. Some of the things that me and Neil do is just really to find the answers for ourselves. But we like to share that information with other people. We're very much a team where we want to share information, we want to share results, we want to share our findings, and let other people make up their own minds.
Yeah,
absolutely. Gary again wants to know, do you have any video or audio evidence you could share?
Yeah, we've got quite a few. We do actually have the HAPRC evidence page on Facebook. That's not just our evidence, it's the evidence or the interesting things that have happened to teams that have been up here. And it's all audio or footage from the centre. There's no footage from other locations. It's all stuff that's been captured here. I like teams to send me what they capture. Some of the footage I can't see what they mean, but they took it and they thought it was interesting, so I put it on there. But some of it is really
absolutely
interesting. Like, for example, the door opening on its own.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And it's happened a few times. I know. There's two pieces of footage of the door opening, especially.
It happened to my team.
Yeah, when Phil and Sarah and Are You Haunted guys came and filmed for their series, they caught it, and there's no disputing. They had two cameras on it. As did Wednesbury Paranormal. They had two cameras on the door, and it clearly opened on its own. And there's no wind, there's no vacuum because we tested it.
Yeah,
there's also the footage of the mirror smashing. To me, indisputable. You know, we came up the week after, during the week after, didn't we, Jane?
Yeah.
And we spent 3 or 4 hours trying to do the same, and we just couldn't.
It happened to my team when my team were there, because my team was the first team to investigate the HAPRC apart from ourselves, and this night it happened. So, no. Just again, if anyone's picking anything up, please say that, and we'll put you up. Will says he's always drawn to the Satanic Bible in the witch's room.
That's Will, though,
thinks yeah, that's Will. Just don't get the plague bell out in front of Will.
That has to come out when Will comes up.
Absolutely. Lisa reckons there's a male energy, but nothing concrete at the moment. Okay. Nikki says she feels something around Neil.
I can believe that.
Sue Yeah, Sue says chest feeling tight, spirit, I believe. I don't know about that.
Cool.
I think I'll put this one up. You've been missed. Off D. Come. Somebody else has gone on about doing a 24-hour thing. God, I'm just scrolling through. Hang on, I've got a question. So, what experiments do you do up at the centre?
Us personally, we've got a couple going ongoing for a long time, which is interesting. We won't say what because we don't want people to suddenly say, "Oh, is this there or is that there?" Because we don't want, like I said, we don't want to influence people. But we do have a long-running experiment on our Ouija boards. You know, I think everyone, if they're using Ouija boards, they open them up and they close them down at the end of the session. We don't. All our Ouija boards that we use have been open from day one, and they stay open. Again, see, we're testing the old saying that you have to close them down. And to be honest, nothing evil.
That's been an ongoing one, that is.
Yes, it's ongoing. We will never close them down. If teams want to use them, they can do under the condition they don't close it down. If they want to use their own, fine. They do what they want to do. But nothing, as far as I'm aware, nothing has come through the Ouija board, even though it's been left open for 3 years. You got anything to add, Jane?
Yeah. There's other things going on as well, isn't there? Because we are a research centre, what we want to try and do is capture information, and that can't be done overnight. So, like as Neil was saying earlier, if somebody comes across the name of John or whatever that's connected, say, to an item, and then when somebody comes along and holds that same item and picks up that same information, then that becomes interesting. When you have, over a period of time, 10 people hold the same thing and they all come up with the same name, then that becomes more than interesting. And this is the long-term sort of ongoing stuff that we try to capture, because once you capture the information like that, that's got to be more than just coincidence. You're capturing long-term information, and this is the sort of stuff that can't be captured when you just go to a venue for, say, 3 hours with a team.
Yeah.
And on a short-term basis. Because we have got the centre, we can keep these things going in the same environment, in the same room, so you've got the same sort of information there, and we can then capture all that, and that's sort of all part of the research and the experiments that are going on.
Yeah, we did get some criticism, didn't we, Jane, a long time ago, that we don't show any research. But like Jane said, research isn't 5 minutes. Soon Jane and I will be doing some experiments. It's going to take at least 2 years, as far as I can see, before it's over. So we can't.
But we're hopefully going to then put it all in a book, I think.
We're not going to release it until we know. It's no good releasing a snippet of research because you don't know the answers then. We will release it when we know the answers. As far as we're concerned.
Absolutely. Can you show us a few of your items in the room, in Grandma Mary's room or the doll room?
Yeah. We'll start with Grandma Mary's doll. This one. The reason the doll is behind glass is because Grandma Mary, the spirit who owns the doll, asked us to look after it, not let people play with it. She's not evil. Grandma Mary's a lovely lady. And then you got Grandma Mary's rocking chair. That's where she sits and rocks. This is Bob's clown. That's Bob's clown. That's me knocking the doll over. Obviously, we do have Anna, but I'm going to skip past her. We've got the old rocking chair that we've had interesting results on the rocking chair, and we've got the ventriloquist dummy, which
it keeps getting thrown out.
I like putting the dummy on the chair because we don't think the old lady likes it being on the chair. So quite often we'll find the ventriloquist dummy on the floor. Not just fell off, it's like it's been shoved off. And then we got the Victorian.
What about me curious?
Yeah, we'll come over to them bottles. Right, Mercurius. Do you want to explain who Mercurius is, Jane?
Yes, we were doing a seance one night. We had some guests in. We were doing a seance in the seance room, and the little cafe up the back jitty was having a what they call a pop-up bar. And every now and again they hire it out to people, and they have a little pop-up bar, and people are having a party in there. And this particular night, the music was so loud, the room was shaking, and we couldn't hear anything or feel anything. So we moved to what was then the tea room, which is now the war room. And we were sitting around a table in there, and I could feel this thing around my leg, and when I actually connected with it, I could see that it was a creature. And one of the other girls, she said she could also feel it. And when I drew it, she said she could see it once it sort of got around her leg. And when I drew it, she actually agreed that that's what she could see. And I went into Neil and said, "There's somebody's let a creature out in here," and he says, "I don't know." And I said, "No, somebody today has opened a bottle and let a creature out." And he said, "Oh, I don't know." And I said, "Well, they're telling me it's you. You've done it." And what happened was they'd been and bought that chemistry set there, and some of the small bottles there, Neil had sat opening them. And because I wasn't there in the day, so I didn't know. But one of the little bottles there that he'd opened that this creature was in was actually called Mercurius. And when somebody looked up online what Mercurius was, it actually came back as being one of the Grimm's tales of a spirit in a bottle, which we found really quite interesting. But that was our first creature that we encountered, and since then we've encountered quite a few more.
We have, yeah. So Gary just popped up again. He photobombed again. He does it every week. It's a party trick. Somebody just put up about a voodoo doll, and I was going to ask it, and I've lost the question. Isabella. Do you have any stories to tell regarding the voodoo doll? Do we have a voodoo doll in the witch's room, don't we? The little one.
Yeah, we'll go and have a look. I think it's these dolls possibly were connected to voodoo. We don't have many stories.
There was one under the glass dome, wasn't there, a voodoo doll?
Yeah, the old voodoo doll, unfortunately, isn't here anymore. The one that was making people feel poorly, that's not here anymore.
The one that was sitting on the top of the shelf of the unit behind you, the dancing sort of.
Oh, this one.
Dark lady.
That one. That's the one. Do we have a story on her, Jane?
I can't quite see that one. Is that the one with the thing around? Yeah, that was the one with the thing around the neck, wasn't it? Yeah, she was used. She was. I've got it here in my book. She was used, I think, for. It was the necklace that we found that was the negative thing, wasn't it? Yeah. But her herself, she was used to try and ward off evil spirits, I think. But the necklace around her neck was the thing that wasn't particularly good.
Yeah.
But we did have a voodoo doll on loan to us, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
On the top of the shelf. But the original voodoo doll, that one was quite interesting because we did actually take that to the old house, and it was we sort of got that really did give off a lot of really not very nice vibes at all. And it was that one we were working with when we actually got captured Blueface in there.
That's right.
And that's one of the best bit of evidence that we've ever caught.
That's right.
But yeah, there's quite a few voodoo sort of items in there.
Absolutely. Are you okay staying on for a little bit longer? Because there's a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of
okay.
questions coming through.
I'm okay. You
Is that okay with you,
Okay.
boss? Right. Let's go back to the questions I saw. Shall no. Have you ever had to cleanse an object? And if so, what was it?
Not as well. The only one really is the Buddha, isn't it, Jane?
The Buddha. Oh, well, that wasn't necessarily a cleansing.
No.
Yeah. There was one that had sort of an animal attached to it, which was like a bull elephant. He had the spirit of like a bull elephant attached to it. And all the negativity was coming off that this creature was still sort of trapped. So we did actually move that on and let that go. But it wasn't necessarily a cleansing. It was more just sort of letting it go. But we're more the opposite way. There was an item that came to the centre that I think somebody had tried to cleanse.
Yeah.
It did smell quite strongly of sage, and it had sort of pushed the spirit sort of into the background, if you like. But I sort of
That one.
uncleansed it and let it come back out, and yeah, that one. So I sort of uncleansed it and sort of freed up the spirit there, so we could work with it. So, you know, we don't cleanse anything unless they really want us to. So we don't move anything on unless they want us to. Most of them like being there.
No, we
As
don't.
you said before, most of them like make their way there, don't they, to be there?
Yeah. Like Jane says, unless the spirit wants to move on, we don't. We don't contain any spirits. They got the free will. If they want to move on, they move on. You know, if they say to Jane, "Will you help us move on into the light?" Jane will help them.
Right. Isabella wants to know, what is it you've not closing the boards down, the spirit boards?
Why is the decision for?
Advantage.
What's the advantage?
No, what is the advantage?
What's the advantage of not closing the boards down?
Yeah.
I think for us, it's challenging the other people's beliefs and that, isn't it? Because everyone says if you use a board, you've got to close it down. You've got to close it down properly. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And this, that, and the other. And if you don't use it, chop it up, bury it, chuck it into water, and all this sort of stuff. And we just thought, well, let's just leave it open and see what happens, because everybody's saying, you know, do this, do that. But is this because that's what they've been told? That's because somebody somewhere back a long time ago has said this is what you have to do. But why do we have to do it? Why? And that's a lot of things. You know, that is a lot of the ideas really behind a lot of what we do. Why do we have to do that? And who says we have to do that?
That's right.
Absolutely.
I don't tell people don't close it down. That's entirely up to their choice. The people and teams work the way they want to work. It's just that we want to test, like Jane said, we want to test why. Why do you have to close the Ouija board down? Is it going to allow all sorts through the board? At the minute, I'd say no, because we've not had anything untoward happen with one of our boards.
No, you haven't. Lisa wants to know what's happening with the haunted box. Last time there was wax had come off in big pieces, and she finds it fascinating.
Okay, we'll go
you know,
back
the one
into.
that's in the seance room.
We'll go back in and we'll show it you.
You might need a torch on this one.
Yeah, you got the torch. Okay, we'll actually take the glass dome off. Okay, interestingly, the last time I saw the box, this piece of wax was down like this, or something. Was that how you remember
It was.
One of
Yes,
the
it
pieces,
was.
definitely.
tonight when we just come up, it was like that again, and no one has been up here.
Okay.
No one has touched
No
that
one
since
touches
the
it,
glass
no.
dome. So it's interesting. But the story of this box is we did a live feed, and it was completely sealed in wax. We did a live feed on it, and Jane's drawn what she's seen attached to the box or in the box, and they asked me to put it in front of the big arched mirror, so which I did, and it built it. And when we come back, the wax had cracked like that. No one had been up. So I put it under the glass dome, which you just saw me took off, and now the wax is actually disappearing. And you think there'd be wax all around the inside of the dome, but there's not. And it's changed again since. So I'm looking forward to Jane coming back to do more work on it.
Yeah. I mean, we've got 3 really good pieces of evidence with that box as such. We've got the picture that I drew of the man who I feel is attached to it. There's also a picture of Jacqueline Dixon who did some work with the box, and her face has changed, and the resemblance to my drawing is really quite uncanny. And then somebody else took a photo of the glass dome, and you can clearly see the face, very similar to my drawing, in the glass dome. And that's 3 different pieces of information from 3 different sources. And it just, the coincidence just seems too much to just be coincidence.
And the pictures on that are on the page, on the Haunted Antiques evidence page.
Yeah.
They were last time I saw it. And Kay says, my understanding is different. Things can come and go via a portal. Has anything left an object and is no longer active?
Left an object that's no. What do you mean? Does she mean a spirit was attached to an item, but the spirit's gone, so the item's not active now?
Yes.
Not that I can think of. Because we believe they want to be here. They're here with the items because they either love the items or for some reason they want to stay with the items. Like I said earlier, we don't make them stay. They've got free will. If they want to go, we would say thank you very much for what you've done for us. All the best. So, as far as I can remember, nothing has lost its energy.
Yeah, I think it's one of the interesting things that we did find with items that did not have anything attached to them. They're the ones that seem to be manipulated by the stronger spirits. So we had the incident of Mouse Man. Now Mouse Man hasn't got anything attached to him. He's a bit like a rag sort of doll with a mouse. I don't know if he's still in there, but he was on a shelf in the witch's room, and for quite a while he was getting thrown off the shelf, but he's got nothing attached to him. And one of the things that we found, if an item has got something attached to it, another spirit cannot sort of use that item or manipulate that item. If an item's got no spirit attached to it, then it's easily manipulated by other spirits that sort of aren't attached to something. So that was quite good. And when we actually took Mouseman out of the room and moved him from the position where he kept getting thrown off the shelf, it then seemed to move to the wall. There was a metal wall thing, wasn't there, Neil? That candle holder or something.
Yeah.
And that then kept getting thrown off the shelf by the same spirit because it was an item that had nothing else attached to it.
Isabella said, have you ever been terrified by any experiences you've had in the seance room?
I'd say yes. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the seance room. We've been terrified by quite a few experiences, and one of them that always springs to mind, and it makes me laugh now, but I came down the stairs before Neil took over downstairs. That room always used to be locked, And whenever I came down the stairs in the evening, I would always just knock on the door and then just put my ear up to the door and just listen to see what I could hear. Sometimes there'd be scratching, sometimes there'd be noises. But on this one particular night, I came down the stairs while Neil was locking up, and I knocked on the door and I put my ear up against the door. And as Neil come down the bottom of the stairs, there were these 3 really big, heavy knocks back on the other side of the door. Well, I just ran off, ran down the stairs.
She ran off and left me.
I ran off down the stairs. I think you'd got a bit of a bad leg at the time, hadn't you, Neil? You couldn't move so quick. So I just
left him as bait. That's something I'd do to him.
Yeah, it was. It's funny. Thinking back, it's funny, but it wasn't at the time.
But yeah, there's been quite a few scary things happen up there.
Can I just say, my scariest part in the sounds room was when we did a live feed last year. It was me and Amy. Can you remember when we played this particular piece of
Alistair Cram chanting?
We played Alistair Crowley chanting, and then we played something backwards, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Lord's Prayer backwards, you remember?
Yeah.
Lord's Prayer.
And the feeling in the sounds room was horrific. Obviously, Jane wasn't here.
The table.
That time. And
the table moved. Did you remember that he shifted? It span.
And I must admit, I was quite nervous that night because obviously Jane wasn't here. And I was scared. I was scared that night, literally. And I have decided, I don't know why, I'm going to do the same experiment when I'm up here on my own for 3 hours in April.
Absolutely. Isabella says, so where did the doll... Oh no, you must be mental. Isabella, where did the doll go? I think she means the doll that was in the doll room.
Yeah, the old...
in Grandma Mary's room.
Well,
back with its previous owner.
Yeah, when we first started, we had quite a big team. And 3 of the team left at the same time. And one of the team had actually bought that doll for us, and she took it with her. I think we have asked if we can buy it back, but she doesn't reply. So, but obviously, the way we work and the way we believe is it wasn't meant to stay here. I've just seen a shadow then. So, obviously, I'd like the doll to still be here, but it's not. So it's not meant to be.
No, absolutely. If has any of the spirits ever followed you home from the centre?
Me, yes. I do believe.
Me, yes.
Robert, who's attached to the clown, I do believe he comes home and he turns the TV over because he's naughty. He comes home with another boy and who's mischievous. And I do believe they listened to me, and I did an experiment at work and asked them to come with me and do things at work, and quite a lot of things happened, and boxes were moving on their own.
It did.
People were being pushed. A couple got scratched, and the computer systems all crashed and couldn't get back, and that sort of thing. So yes, they do follow us home, but I hasten to add, if teams come up here, don't worry, they won't follow you home because they want to be here.
Yeah, they don't follow me home. None of them will come back to mine.
No,
you don't allow them to, do you, Jane?
No, I just send them straight back if they do.
Absolutely.
Go home. Be gone with you.
Go. Right, if anybody has any haunted items, right, that they don't want, what do you suggest they do to them? Where do they send them?
contacting me, and I will give you my home address, because we're not at the centre every day of the week, so it's best to send them to my home address. I will give you my home address, and you can send them straight to me. We quite a few times I get asked this question: is there any item that we wouldn't have up the centre? And my reply is no. We would have anything. And then they say, what about the Annabelle doll? I say, yeah, I'd have the Annabelle doll. You know, the real, supposedly Annabelle doll. But she wouldn't be kept behind glass, because what's the point? We want to know if there's an evil spirit, or if it's a demon, whatever it is. We want to know what the story is. I want to talk to her. I'm sure Jane thinks the same.
Yeah.
So we will have
absolutely.
anything.
Before we go, you show us the
Yeah.
war room, please, and the wheelchair
Yes.
and that, and tell us a little bit about the wheelchair. You can hear him right above me.
That's the wheelchair. It's very active, but it doesn't just have one person's energy around it. You know, some people can sit in it and feel like the leg's missing. Some people sit in it and feel other ailments. So there's all sorts. But it could have been sat in by dozens of injured soldiers, because it's come from a World War II rehabilitation hospital. But before it was there, it was in an asylum. So who knows how many people have sat in it with injuries. And it is a
Absolutely.
fascinating item. And of course, Philip Schofield sat in it on this morning.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's your favourite item in the war room?
Oh, that's easy. That's this baby, the Anderson shelter. It's been up here a few months now, hasn't it? It's been up here a few months. It is fascinating.
Yeah.
We do know some things about it, but again, we're not telling people, because you've got to find out yourselves, and then we will confirm it to you. I know Jane loves it.
Yeah.
Oh, we all love it. So how did you acquire it then, Neil? I know the story.
Well, it's a bit of a long story. Somebody was pestering me for months and months and months, Amy, that we need an Anderson shelter
sorry.
up here. We were doing, I'm not sure if it was an afternoon tea we were doing, and a lady says, oh, a friend of mine's got one of them in the garden. I said, well, if you can get it, we'll have it. Unfortunately, she couldn't get it, but the next day I was on eBay just searching Anderson shelters, and we come across this one. So Luke and I travelled all the way down to south of Guildford in a van, picked it up and brought it back, and it was come in 4 different pieces, and it just adds, it makes this room so much better, so much more activity since the shelter came in, and it really does look fantastic. You know, people can go investigate, and they can actually sit in it in the dark, or they can play the sounds of bombs or sounds of, or anything. I do think sounds are important in the paranormal to get activity. So quite often we'll have the sound of the air raid going, because that's when people would have sat in it. Obviously, it's not been hit by a bomb, because it's still intact. So I doubt very much if anyone actually died in it. But it is opened a whole new area up for us. So I love the Anderson shelter.
Yeah, and I very much believe, right from day one, when we've been working in the centre, I very much believe that every item comes to us at precisely the right time, and you know, it's got to be the right item, because obviously the first shelter wasn't the right one for us, but this one was the right one for us, and it came to us precisely at the right time. And that's why, you know, Neil had to go all the way down to wherever he went to fetch it. But I do firmly believe that every item that comes to the centre is meant to be there, and it comes to us at precisely the right time. And it's a fantastic object to work with. I was fortunate enough to go up to the centre. I think it was last October time, and we did some work with it, and it's a great item to work with. I love it. I can't wait to get back in there.
Oh, you did a bit of an experiment on there, didn't you, Jane?
Only a little one.
Which is still ongoing. Only a little.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we want to do. We want to try, and you know, we say experiments, but we want to try and test some of these things and leave them going, so other people can perhaps experience it. And when other people experience it and say that this is what they've experienced, then that helps us to understand a little bit more about how the paranormal works and how these things work. Because we could just leave things in there and do absolutely nothing to them, and then when people come back and say, we've experienced this, well, if we don't sort of capture any of that, then we're not learning anything.
That's right.
Absolutely. Right. I think we're going to the end of the show now. But I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me have been here, and hopefully come back again and we can do another show.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
One day.
We're always glad to come back.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. So if anybody has any items that they don't want, bring them here. Send them here. Right.
Yeah.
Contact Neil. He has a Facebook page. So not contact me, because I'm part of Ghost Hunter Tours as well as the Haunted Antiques, and I can get you into touch with Neil. So if anyone has any haunted items that they no longer want, or it's the scaring them or anything, we'll get them sent to Neil. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Don't forget,
and
one second, Amy.
Okay.
Don't forget, I am doing a live 3-hour investigation on my own up here, April the 17th. And it'll be exclusive on our YouTube channel and to our members. So pop over to the YouTube channel, Haunted Connections TV, subscribe, tick the notifications, and you'll be able to see me scared to death on my own.
It'll be worth it, trust me.
It will.
Right. Thank you again for joining me, and we'll see everybody again soon. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.